Hello and welcome back. So thank you very much. Hope everyone's managed to take their seats. So my name is Lily Yu, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the third speaker of today. We have Professor Hisayo Oguchi, who's joining us from Keio University, who is our co-sponsor for this event. Professor Oguchi is a leading expert on Japanese and American contemporary literature, and she has a very extensive record in research, and today her talk is entitled Uncannily Cute Cats, Reconsidering Japanese Kawaii Culture in Shojo Manga and Animation. So I'm really looking forward to this talk, so without further ado, please, Professor Oguchi. Thank you.
Professor Yu, thank you very much for your wonderful introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. It is my great honor to have a talk here at Royal Society, the oldest institution of learned society and science in this great country. My name is Hisayo Oguchi from English Department of Keio University, located in Tokyo, Japan. First of all, please allow me to express my sincere gratitude to all of you who joined this event, Experiencing Japan Exhibition 2014, instead of going to Hyper Japan 2014. I myself am a scholar of American literature, focusing on 19th century American writers, along with their American women writers, along with their spiritual traditions. I have been always interested in Western literature and culture since I was very small. I once tried to remember the reasons why I was so fascinated or captivated by the culture of Western cultures, in spite of the fact that I had never been to those countries until much later. Actually, I was 15 years old when I first visited the US, and unbelievably, this is my first visit to UK. The first thing occurred to my mind was, of course, the strong influence of media, especially Hollywood movies. Since my father, who is now in his mid-70s, is a big fan of the foreign films, I frequently watched classical movies with him. I still remember the sensation that I felt when my father took me to the revival movie theater to see one of the greatest musical movies of all time, West Side Story. I was in the 6th grade then. I also loved films like My Fair Lady, The Third Man, or Rebecca. I made it rule to go on a small local library every Saturday afternoon in order to borrow books on Western society and culture, which eventually led me to the gateway to the field I'm working on, American literature. But then, after thinking further, I noticed that was not the beginning of my interest in Western culture, since by then I had already read quite a few books by such authors as Louisa May Alcott, Lola Ingalls Wilder, Jean Webster, Frances Burnett, C.S. Lewis, detective stories by Agatha Christie or Arthur Conan Doyle. I also love still love reading Jane Austen's novels, of course. But then again, thinking much further, I realized that was not the beginning either. My first encounter with American and European culture was not with movies, nor with children's books, but with Japanese comics and animations. I read so many mangas and watched animations whose settings are outside of Japan. Later, when I started reading literature, I could easily jump into the world of Charles Dickens, Charlotte Bronte, or Henry James, thanks to manga and animations. I apologize for this long personal memoir, but this is a significant discovery for me to connect time and culture in which I grew up with my current position in Japan as a scholar of foreign literature. I soak up shoujo manga and animation. It is literally everywhere. Therefore, manga and animation indeed is a very big part of contemporary culture in Japan. In today's talk, I will reconsider the relationship with Japanese subculture and consciousness and the kawaii figures represented by a particular animal, cats. Dealing with Hello Kitty, a famous character of so-called fancy goods in Japan, and Chibineko, which means small cat, from a famous shoujo manga by Yumiko Oshima, The Star of Cottonland, and Tamala, a punk cat in a cult animation movie, Tamala 2010, I would hopefully reveal the significance of kawaii-ness in Japanese culture. And I hope this talk will deepen and widen your interest in Japan and Japanese culture. Okay, let's see. Many of you probably remember the shocking news revealed a few months back that Hello Kitty is not a cat. Its creator, Sanrio, boldly stated that Hello Kitty is a British schoolgirl living in the suburbs of London. She might be here today. Let me confess that I am not a huge fan of the Hello Kitty myself. I have rather been avoiding Kitty, the princess of Kawaii world, because she's too popular. She's literally ubiquitous. I was amazed when my university, K University, began to selling a Hello Kitty mascot wearing a KO rugby uniform on university bookstores. Anyway, Hello Kitty is a British kid. How is this possible? Why is this character setting feasible? And why do many Japanese people love her? And why is she a cat? Although its creator Sanrio adamantly denies the fact that she is a cat. Let us briefly review the history of domestic cats in Japanese culture to contemplate on these questions. I believe that many of the attributes of cats that I'm going to explain are also shared by other cultures, but I would like to focus on the possible reasons why cats are so popular in a Japanese context. The first appearance of a cat in Japanese historical documents can be traced back to the Heian period, around the 9th century. In Nihon Ryoiki, the earliest collection of Buddhist anecdotes, a story is introduced as follows. It is a story about a deceased father who stays in this floating world because he cannot peacefully ascend to heaven. His soul returns to his son's house in the form of a cat and stays there for 3 years as a pet. This anecdote suggests the mysterious and spiritual power of rebirth or reincarnation that cats might possess. Takako Tanaka, a scholar of medieval Japanese literature, indicates that cats were depicted to show people's affection in late Heian period. In the Tale of Genji by Lady Murasaki, when a male character, Kashiwagi, managed to gain a little kitten from a woman he loves, Onna Sannomiya, Kashiwagi finds the kitten approaching him, meowing, "Neu neu." According to Tanaka, this is the first onomatopoeia of cats meowing in Japanese, and this sound implies neyo, neyo, meaning shall we lie down, with a sexual connotation. Cats were believed to be a miniature form of a tiger during ancient times in Japan, influenced by Chinese tradition and animal categorization. The petiteness of cats evokes an intimate and affectionate feeling in people, especially when cats are held at people's bosom, where our hearts are, as Tanaka argues. Cats and hearts are often associated with each other, inducing intimacy, affection, and eroticism in us. However, cats have not always been loved and cherished in Japan. It is said that medieval Japan was a dark age for cats, since they became associated with evilness. One of the reasons is that the Buddhist scriptures do not deal with cats fairly, labeling this once beloved animal for its cunning, ungrateful, and destructive behavior. Cats are adored and yet feared and owed. Although cats are with us, they maintain a distance. Cats are gentle and pestering, as expressed by Japanese expression nekonadegoe, a voice that cats use when they are gently stroked, implying a wheedling voice. At the same time, cats are not concerned about the value we highly appreciate. The proverb, pearls before swine, is expressed in Japanese as gold coins before cats. Cats are supposed to gain supernatural power when they grow old. Nekomata, two-tailed cat, is a monster speaking human language and sometimes haunting us. Kikuya Kimura rightly states the following, quote, "Shallow knowledge never grasps the essence of cats," unquote. He continues, quote, "Cats are shy and introvert, preferring solitude to social interaction even among their own species. Unlike dogs, cats won't curry your favor. Solitude, pride, and elegance are all in this creature. Cats go their own way, ignoring human imbecility," unquote. Thus, cats have elegant independence and adamant disobedience, and yet they keep relationship with people through the occasional expression of wheedling attitude, which attracts cat lovers. Maneki neko, beckoning cat, whose exact origin is unknown but probably dates back to the late Edo period, is widely spread throughout Japan. Wishing cats are perceived to bring luck, prosperity, and better social relationship for us. These characters of cats, small, lovely, affectionate, yet cool and cruel, are very appropriate terms of kawaii-ness. Kawaii, or cuteness, is the term strongly associated with girls' culture, Shojo bunka, Shojo culture, in Japan. This ephemeral cultural phenomenon, arising around 1960s, now attracts academic attention from scholars from Japan and abroad. Kazuma Yamane's research on the peculiar handwriting style of Japanese young girls in mid-1980s suggests that unconscious inclination towards immaturity prevailed among girls in Japanese culture, and that kawaii is a key term to describe those girls' preferences. Dr. Sharon Kinsella, who teaches Japanese culture and society at the University of Manchester, published one of the earliest articles on kawaii, entitled "Cute in Japan," as one of the chapters of the book, collected essays titled "Women, Media, and Consumption in Japan," published in 1995. These earliest academic achievements on kawaii eventually motivated us to launch a journal, which is coming next year, 2015. The title of the journal is East Asian Journal of Popular Culture, of which the first special issue is going to be about cute studies. Etymologically, kawaii is derived from kawa hayushi, literally face blushed. The expression can be traced back to around the 11th century and originally means to be embarrassed or to be ashamed. Kawa hayushi phonologically changed into kawayui, which means to be ashamed, to feel awkward, in the 12th century, and consequently acquired the meaning to feel bad about something or somebody, or pitiable qualities. The other derivation of kawa hayushi is kawaiso, pitiable, poor, and miserable. Kawaii as lovable, pretty, or cute appeared as late as 16th century. Therefore, it can be said that kawaii evokes our tender feelings based on pity. Inuhiko Yomota, a well-known cultural critic who is also interested in kawaii, published an introductory book on kawaii in 2006. Yomota skillfully summarizes kawaii in the following way. Kawaii is something somebody small, innocent, weak, immature, incomplete, ephemeral, something or somebody you wanted to protect. He also adds the kawaii is something or somebody that stops time, differing growth of maturity. Kawaii therefore refers to something or somebody you want to develop a relationship with due to affectionate feelings based on pity. It might be easily inspire the banal dichotomy such as protector, protected, ruler, ruled, controller, controlled. But kawaii also has power over you. Since kawaii is incomplete and immature, it is something you cannot completely understand or grasp, and which ultimately opens the door to the uncanny. We will come back to this point later. Now, let us think about Hello Kitty. She's born and raised in London suburb with her wonderful family, a nuclear family consisting of her father, mother, and her twin sister. Her grandparents lives in a different city, which is really close to her home. Okay, and her twin sister, Mimi, who usually remains in the background. So they are a nuclear family, basically. Hello Kitty lives in a lovely house with a Persian cat, Charmy, as her own pet. She's small. According to her official profile, she's around 5 apple tall. And she's probably innocent and immature. If we follow the Kawaii criteria that Yomota offers in his study, Hello Kitty is the embodiment of Kawaii. Now, let us look at the Hello Kitty family. You will probably perceive something strange about this family. The adults, father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother, all appear to be fully smiling, as you can observe their eyes to be closed in a bow shape, which is a Japanese cultural sign of smile. Kitty, as well as her sister Mimi, contrarily have a blank face without a mouth. Sanrio's official explanation of Kitty's deadpan expression is, in fact, acutely divulging the Kawaii secret. Kitty's mouthless face is, according to Sanrio, for sharing the feeling of the person she is with. When you are happy, Hello Kitty is also happy. Likewise, when you are sad, Hello Kitty sympathizes with you. If Hello Kitty mirrors your feelings, then Kitty is not the object to be dominated. Rather, she is the one you are going to identify with. As Cristiano acutely points out in her book, Pink Globalization, Hello Kitty's Trek Across the Pacific, published in 2013. Here is a quote from Yano's book. Hello Kitty and other kawaii objects act as prompts for an empathetic response of caregiving. However, in Japan, there is an additional twist. Some consumers do not only want to adopt the cute commodity, they want to become it, unquote. Yano, following the discussion of Kinsella, argues that such transformation into a kawaii object is a crucial point for understanding the cuteness in Japanese context. And Allison aptly argues that this identification with kawaii objects reflects Amay-based relationship in Japanese culture. Amay has been one of the most frequently considered characteristics of relationality in Japanese culture since the prominent psychiatrist Takeo Doi published the book called The Anatomy of Dependence in 1971. Amae, the literary meaning of which is sweetening, is, according to Doi, an attitude of indulgent dependence that is indispensable to forge a mutual relationship in Japanese culture. Doi asserts that, quote, amae, in other words, is used to indicate the seeking after the mother that comes when the infant's mind has developed to a certain degree, and it has realized that its mother exists independently of itself. In other words, until it starts to amaeru, the infant's mental life is in an extension, as it were, of its life in the womb, and the mother and child are still connected. However, as its mind develops, it gradually realizes that its mother and itself are independent existence, and comes to think of the mother as something indispensable to itself. It is the craving for close contact thus develops that constitutes, one might say, amae, unquote. Doi admits that this phenomenon is not limited to Japanese culture. However, focusing on the untranslatability of amae, he argues its efficacy to understand the ways of thinking of the Japanese. Let us here remember the fact that The Anatomy of Independence was published just 3 years before the birth of Hello Kitty, a blank-faced cute creature which mirrors your feeling. Explaining a historical context of kawaii and girls' culture in the 1960s and 1970s, Shinji Miyadai, a Japanese sociologist, has argued that without mentioning Takeo Doi's argument, a proliferation of youth culture recreates the traditional mother-child stories that frequently appears in manga magazines, transforming into so-called high school drama. Miyadai states that the self-fashioning of girls in the 1960s and 1970s is accompanied by separation from their elder family members, including mothers, and coupled with the discovery of a new relationality with others. Youth culture introduced a new standard for girls instead of being the traditional epitome of purity, honesty, and beauty, namely an inclination towards kawaii culture for building up a new Amay relationality with others. It is highly possible that Hello Kitty, created in 1974, became an object to accept the craving for close contact of girls who needed Amay relationality with others. A few years succeeding Kitty's debut, Yumiko Oshima, a shoujo manga writer famous for her philosophical stories with girly illustrations, started a serialized comic called Wata no Kunihoshi, or The Star of Cottonland. Its protagonist and narrator is an abandoned 2-month-old kitten saved by the Suwano family. The kitten, named Chibineko, which means small kitten, perceived herself to be semi-human and represents herself as a small girl with cat ears. Chibineko somehow believes that she will grow up to be human being. Chibineko, a beautiful white cat, like Hello Kitty, appears in a white dress with a white frill apron. She has blue eyes and fluffy curled hair. She is innocent, ignorant, and needs the protection provided by the Suwano family. Here are the slides. The mother of the Suwano family is talking to the little cat, but the cat herself believes that she is semi-human, so she represents herself a human, a little girl with a cat ears. But they don't understand. But the mother of the Suwano family doesn't understand what the cat's saying because it sounds like meowing, just meowing. Okay. So concurrently, her innocence provides her opportunities to spread happiness and sympathize with others, while learning about the workings of the world. Chibineko, however, is an eternal child because she is never going to be an adult, or in other words, a human being. In this sense, Chibineko reflects the emotional aspects of girls having some anxiety about their own identity. However, according to her, she never derives an answer because, quote, "When I try to think of one thing, my mind strays away from it. It is because the outside scenery changes day by day," unquote. Chibineko does not recognize the stream of time, for she is in the eternal present. This is a transitory characteristic of kawaii, and girls long for this immaturity who are destined to grow up. Yumiko Oshima is one of the manga creators categorized as 24 gumi, or Year of 24 group. Year 24 group refers to a shoujo manga writers born in the 24th year of Showa period, which is 1949, and whose achievements as shoujo manga writers established the basic formats and grammar of this genre. So this is the other comics, the page from the other comics by Yumiko Oshima. One of the characteristics of the revolutionary poetics in shoujo manga is the protagonist's monologue or inner confession about their anxiety. So it is a little bit similar to the stream of consciousness of modernist novels. According to Eiji Okuda, the root of their anxiety may be traced back to the female liberation from the role of mother during the democratization of Japan after World War II. Women were freed from the traditional and oppressive roles imposed on them, and yet the new direction was still to be indicated to girls. Chibineko in The Star of Cottonland, an embodiment of kawaii-ness, clearly differentiates the sphere of children and youth from that of adults. Hello Kitty, a deadpan kawaii cat who receives all the affection from girls, offers relationships based on Amay, allowing girls to have time and space to be themselves when surrounded by them. Cats have elegant independence and adamant disobedience, and yet they keep relationship with people through occasional expressions of a wheedling attitudes, thus attractive cat lovers as I observed initially. If dependence and independence coexist without contradiction, they are probably a perfect representation of kawaii-ness for girls during the 1970s, crystallizing the cultural imagery of cats. Kawaii allows us to have an amai relationship, making us forget about social coercion that demands maturity. But in the 1990s, such relationality supported by kawaii gradually changed. Amai is closely associated with yasashisa, gentleness or softness, a significant aspect of kawaii, as Anne Allison indicates in her insightful article on Pokemon. Yasashisa, gentleness, is a sympathetic attitude to assume and understand what other people need or want. You probably know much more about sympathy than me, for those great moral philosophers such as Adam Smith, David Hume, and Francis Hutchinson were all interested in sympathetic feelings. Fortunately, Christine Baudru succinctly summarizes what sympathy meant to them in her book called Sympathy in American Literature, namely that sympathy is, quote, a fellow feeling to bridge the gap between self and other through imagination, unquote. This is basically the same in the Japanese cultural context. One of the most encouraged merits in Japan is to be aware of others' feelings. Kawaii representations do contribute to bridging the gap between the self and other. Nevertheless, in commercial society, kawaii eventually creates a chasm in our relationships and communications, as Shinji Miyadai acutely points out. Kawaii-ness indeed gives a people a certain standard that makes them all the same superficially. Miyadai asserts that the terminus ad quem for kawaii culture is that it is a culture wherein people have supposedly friendly communication without revealing oneself. They don't need a sympathetic attitude, rather seeking distance from a possessive relationship. Ken Ohira, a psychiatrist, reported that from the beginning of the 1990s, he frequently encountered younger patients who had a definition of yasashisa different from the traditional one. Quite a few patients insisted that their yasashisa was not to communicate with others. According to Ohira, a patient said that people might be hurt by what he says, and knowing that he hurt someone, he in turn hurt himself. Therefore, muteness and passive waiting without having a mutual communication is a new kind of yasashisa, gentleness. And this is, I believe, a different form of amai relationship too. Ohira impressively describes this transformation of yasashisa as the contrast between hot yasashisa and warm yasashisa. People do not need hot yasashisa, a possessive relationship, but warm yasashisa, a loosely and remotely bonded relationship. Interestingly, Ohira notices in his report that most of patients told him that they have stuffed animals in their rooms. Ohira assumes that mute stuffed animals show ultimate gentleness, yasashisa, to his patients. Hello Kitty's popularity suddenly resurfaced in the mid-1990s. It is often said that it was a Japanese popular singer who rekindled the Hello Kitty fever, And that is indeed one of the factors of the transformed Hello Kitty into a global phenomenon. At the same time, Kawaii, by reflecting the contemporary form of relationships, accommodated its meaning to the audience. Cats are probably the most fascinating Kawaii creature because of their kaleidoscopic characteristics. The 1990s witnessed a curious phenomenon, which was the birth of Kawaii cats. Kawaii is a newly coined term to express fear or dread in kawaii objects. You will understand the nuance of kawaii when you see this illustration by Nekojiru, a manga artist, which appeared in 1990. The protagonists of this story are cat siblings, Nyako and Nyata. Their father is unemployed and alcoholic, and her mother managed to feed the family. Interestingly, Japan enjoyed the bubble economy when this manga first appeared in the legendary underground manga magazine Garo. The title of the manga is Nekojiru Udon, and that manga evokes nostalgic feelings reminiscent of the time when Japan was still a poor country. The past represented in this manga is reflected in the present with an impalpable, uncanny atmosphere, which is described in the cruelty of supposedly innocent and cute kittens. Nyako and Nyata are, in one sense, victims of the child abuse, but they are not helpless kids. They show their cruelty and violence toward their pet dog, small insects, or elderly people. Well, not people, elderly cats. When Yasashisa disappeared, Kawaii revealed its uncanny aspects that nobody could control. Emily Rain introduces Shiane Ngai discussion on cuteness, stating that cuteness suggests infancy and a certain helplessness, which prompts sadistic desire for mastery. Here, I would like to ask whose desire this is and who wants to control or to be controlled. Similar to Hello Kitty and other beloved stuffed animals, kawaii things do not talk, and we love them all the more because of that. The muteness and silence of kawaii objects enable us to identify ourselves with them, as Cristiano suggests. However, we are always apprehensive of the fact that we never know what these mute objects really think, since they do not speak. Nyako and Nyata are certainly helpless infants, but they do not hesitate to be brutal and cruel to others. We project ourselves into kawaii objects, but they may not be so easily controlled. They will stimulate our sadistic desires, but perhaps they are the ones who possess such desire. The fact that kawaii cats, Nyako and Nyata, actually talk, albeit awkwardly, debunks the uncanny in kawaii objects through the disguise of a cat, a creature that we are never able to understand in spite of our intimacy. They will not let us have a mutual relationship based on Amay, but instead they reflect the ugliness and cruelty in ourselves. In the 21st century, another cute cat reveals cute cruelty. Tamala, 2010, a punk cat in space, produced by a group of artists called Tree of Life, TOL, was released in 2002. Here, if technically right, I would like to show you the trailer from the movie. And sorry about this, I don't have a sound cable, so just enjoy the visual image of the Tamala. And also you can watch this trailer on YouTube. Oh, here it comes.
とぶっ殺すぞ。ちゃんと忘れてたメロディー目覚めた瞬間思い出す I will forget song こんな歌あくびしながらぐずぐず歯磨きお湯沸かし鏡に覗く俺の着るシャツ窓開け最初の光ハッピーな一日が始まりますね。
Okay, so set in the future Tokyo, Tamala, a motherless kitten, departs from Earth to search for her mother cat who is allegedly living on the planet Orion. However, before reaching the final destination, her spaceship makes an emergency landing on planet Q, where she meets a handsome cat named Michelangelo. Emily Rain states that Tamala is a caricature of Hello Kitty, but it seems to me that she is a descendant of Nyako and Nyata, who never disguised their cruelty. The public security of Planet Q has deteriorated because of the political instability, but Tamala is afraid of nothing. She blatantly shows herself off in a club, dancing fiercely. She's only 1 year old. Which eventually attracts Kentauros, a brutal dog cosplaying as a police officer. She is assaulted by that dog, and her headless body is found by Michelangelo, who flees immediately. However, after a while, Tamala comes back to life and appears in various commercials for every commodity supplied by a huge conglomerate, Caddy and Company. This animation reveals that our desire for cute objects is closely related to the capitalist, materialistic society. Tamala is indeed an innocent kitten, but she never offers yasashisa or gentleness to the audience. She is a selfish cat who cares about nothing but her own desire. Nevertheless, she becomes a desired object by showing herself in every commercial of a huge company. Concurrently, she is the one who captivates us in the commodity society. Thus, cruelty in kawaii-ness ultimately governs us, erasing the, quote, heterogeneous ties of a community based on ideas of spontaneous cooperation, mutual affection, unquote, as Emily Rain suggests. Tamala, in her monosyllabic talk, repeats the following phrase, quote, wait a little longer, unquote. The seducing attitude of the cat is extremely controlling. Tamala 2010, by disclosing cruelty, boldness, perversity, and eroticism in kawaii objects, forces us to redefine kawaii-ness in the 21st century. Well, this is my analysis about kawaii culture and cats, and I am going to continue my study on this topic. By the way, I learned the motto of this Royal Society is nullius in verba, which is Latin for take nobody's word for it. And now it's your turn to actually see the kawaii culture in Japan with your own eyes. I hope many people here will be interested in Japan and Japanese society, and I hope I will learn about the country where I grew up from you someday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Oguchi, for a wonderful talk. It's fascinating, and I, for one, learnt a lot about the intricacies of Japanese culture from your talk. So I think we have time for a couple of questions, if anyone would like to raise their hand and yes, please.
Professor Gucci, thank you. Thank you very much for a fascinating and very enjoyable lecture. You mentioned American literature and your interest in that. Do you see any links between Kawaii and books, novels of the 19th century or later that you've also studied?
Thank you very much. That's a wonderful question, and I've been thinking about the Kawaii culture in the United States. I mean, like in the literary culture, and I've been studying basically mainly 19th century women's writers like Harriet Beecher Stowe or Louisa May Alcott and the other women writers, and I believe that it's quite difficult for me to find a Kawaii object in American literature, but when it was imported to Japan, translated into Japan, especially after World War II. I think it has a lot of let's see, especially translated as a manga, it is so-called cutified, or it make it pretty, like a fashion or an object that they have, their lifestyles and so forth, such as Anne of Green Gables are very popular in Japan, and they, many Japanese girls are so fascinated with their life in the country life. So maybe it is their natural lifestyle in Prince Edward Island. But for Japanese girls, it's Occidental feelings or Occidental atmosphere. It's like a kawaii things for them, like wooden drawers or small beds and the window opening like in both sides, that kind of thing. It feel like kawaii things for them. Does that, do I make myself understood? Okay. Yes.
Yes, we have a question. Yes, please.
Thank you. I want to ask, because of the lack of yasashisa in some of the products of popular culture, in terms of kawaii, and also because of the brutality of the characters that are being put on the pedestal, would you say that that the kawaii culture may result in young people who are growing up on it justifying or even encourage them to be more selfish as something they would strive towards?
Okay. It's also a good question, and as maybe I should have explained a little bit about the changing of the meaning of yasashisa during the 1990s, according to Ken Ohira's report, and he says he doesn't mean that there is no yasashisa in contemporary Japanese culture, but it's yasashisa. The meaning of yasashisa has been changed a little bit, not a little bit, but greatly changed. And yasashisa, it should be to take care of each other or to feel your feelings as if it is mine, but somehow not to have a possessive or sticky relationship, to avoid those relationships, is yasashisa. So the meaning of yasashisa is they have their own yasashisa, but it is not a little bit different from selfish. So they would like to protect you and me at the same time in order to avoid unnecessary relationship. That is the new kind of yasashisa, according to Ohira's report.
So you wouldn't say that the indifference towards other people is not being encouraged because of characters showing indifference or brutality and being
Yes.
basically worshipped by
Right.
young
So
generation.
it reflects another new type of yasashisa.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank you.
What you were saying quite early in the talk about this sort of affectation of immaturity, wanting to be very childish even though you were an adult, it put me in mind, I don't know if you've come across it, quite a small subculture in Essex where girls were dressing like they were 4 or 5 years old in little ankle socks and short skirts. And I don't think it really took off across the country, but there was a definite sense. An Essex girl still has that sense of being quite immature, pretending to be quite stupid. I wondered if you had any thoughts about the connection between those two, because I think that Essex girl affectation came about a little bit later, or about the same time as a little bit later than Hello Kitty, but not much.
Okay. Could you paraphrase a little bit more about? Sorry,
I rambled. I wondered. I don't know how well known it is outside of the UK. I mean, in the UK, to say Essex girl brings up an instant image, and it's something that girls pretend to be. They're not necessarily really stupid or really childish, but they think it makes them more attractive, more.
Right.
What people expect of them.
Okay.
And they will put on this immature attitude.
Okay.
Before anyone thinks I'm being rude about Essex, I was born there, okay? Okay, so I am not being rude about, I'm not standing outside. I went to school with people like this who would be very clever, but who would then go out in the evening and pretend to be very stupid and very immature.
I think it's a very important point that maybe I have to. This time I try to avoid of a little bit feminist point of view, but I'm a feminist, so I'm really aware of that. And I know that there are a lot of people criticizing Hello Kitty who doesn't have mouth. Is that muteness is expected in Japanese culture, especially for women or girls. And I believe that it's, so I just wanted, I know that criticism, but I would like to show other explanation about her mouthless face, dead mouth face. But indeed, immaturity is somehow probably still expected among girls or women, even in adult women too. Like in a company that I worked for a short time as a part-time worker, said women's workers, men, the boss called them like onnanoko, it's girls, it's a girl's job kind of thing. So I know that they are not treated, women are not treated fairly at the time. It's about 20 years ago. And I think it's, as you said, it's definitely that kind of aspect has been involved. This time I tried to avoid, because it's going to be a very longer lecture. It's going to be a longer lecture. But I definitely would like to think and keep on thinking about that aspect too. Thank you very much.
I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, the lady on the right hand side. Yeah, Leader Wilbert.
Would you say the perhaps lack of strong female empowerment within anime and manga has led to a kind of warped relationship within girls in Japan about how they should act, how they should behave, should they be working for complete equality for strength, or should they be this kawaii character?
Okay, I think it's, this time I concentrate on the representation of cats. So I pick up the cats characters. But as you probably imagine, that there are a lot of fighting girls, empowered girls characters in Japanese animation and manga, like Sailor Moon and the card captor Sakura. So I think it's a little bit different context. They came from the different contexts, and I would like to keep on continue to researching about that too. Thank you.